Hey there everyone, SQ here, and today I wanted to talk about the Wallbreak mechanic in Strive. This is a pretty unique mechanic that hasn't really existed in other games, and naturally it has a lot of people trying to figure out how the heck it even works, as well as trying to figure out how to strategize around it. That said, I think for the most part, most people are kind of just doing their combo, and if their combo happens to break the wall, they just take it and they're happy with it. And in some cases, people are even optimizing their combos to make sure that they get wall breaks. However, something I don't think a lot of people have been considering is the idea that sometimes not breaking the wall can actually be really beneficial to you, and it's something you want to consider. There are some players out there who have been experimenting with not breaking the wall, myself included. I've been saying for a little while now that I think not breaking the wall is really underrated. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about my opinion on that and kind of give my own insight on the things that I consider when I'm trying to decide if I want to break the wall or not. So in this video, we're going to be going over some training mode examples, as well as we're going to be watching some of my own tournament footage. That way I can kind of explain my own thought process in real time. So real quick, I just want to explain the basics of the wall break mechanic. That way we all understand what we're talking about here. Essentially, the wall has a set amount of health, and all of your moves do a certain amount of damage to it. There's a bit more that goes into the calculations, but it's a bit confusing and you don't really need to know it. All you really need to know is that once you've done a certain amount of damage, the wall will break, just like this. Now, once you break the wall, you get what is called positive bonus. With this bonus, you get a small attack and defense boost, which is pretty nice. But the main bonus is the meter gain. So you'll notice if you pay attention to my meter after I break the wall here, my meter is going to gain rapidly, even when we're doing nothing. If we're just standing here in neutral, you'll see it starts going up. And if I start doing a combo, it goes up even faster. This is very strong. In a game like this, where meter is extremely crucial because it gives you access to new combo routes, different pressure options, it gives you access to defensive options even, having meter in this game is very important. So this positive bonus is no joke. That said, it's not exactly free either. You are giving up two very important things to get it. When you're going for a wall break, what you're giving up is essentially the corner and Oki. Because whenever you're doing this, you're launching your opponent basically to round start position, and you're giving up the corner to do so. The corner is usually one of the most important things you can have in a fighting game, so giving that up alongside Oki is kind of a tall order, especially for some characters. If you play a character like Zato or Ino, characters who are very momentum based, giving up the corner is a lot to ask for. Now you can keep the corner if you spend 50 meter to do a super. If you ever break the wall with a super, it will actually give you a hard knockdown after the wall break, and this gives you enough time to run up and apply pressure, just like that, which is pretty good. And usually if I have 50 meter, 9 times out of 10, if I have a wall break, I'm going to break it with a super because I want to be able to continue pressure. But you do have to have 50 meter to even do that, and you are still going back to mid-screen, so it's still not for free. And that's pretty much what this discussion is about. It's about wagering whether you want to keep momentum and keep up your corner offense, or if you want to go back to mid-screen, do a little bit of extra damage and get the positive bonus. And there's a lot of different factors that I consider when I'm trying to decide whether I want to break the wall, and those are pretty much the resources in the current match state. Those things include your health bar, burst gauges, and tension gauge. I think the best way for me to explain my thought process when it comes to wall breaks is if we use some tournament footage where I can explain my thought process in real time. Let's go ahead and switch over to that real quick. Alright, so this is NLBC 69. I'm just using this because it's the most recent tournament that I entered, so it's fresh in my mind. This is on Spooky's channel, by the way. I'll have a link in the description down below. Make sure to check it out. He uploads tons of Strive tournaments and whatnot. But in this set, there's two good examples, I think, when it comes to understanding my thought process behind why I choose to break the wall or not. So in this situation here, I end up getting out of the corner against Papa Leo, end up jumping over him, and I get a hit. And from this conversion here, I could have chose to break the wall. If I did a combo that would actually do a wall break, it probably would have put Papa Leo at about like half of what he's at currently. But I didn't want to do that, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I don't have 50 meter myself, so I can't do a wall break combo into super to give me Oki after the wall break. So we would just go back to playing neutral, which isn't really what I want in this situation, because I also don't have much health to play with. At my current health total, along with how much meter that Papaleo has, if he gets one decent hit in neutral into an RC conversion, it'll probably kill me. And if it doesn't kill me, it'll put me really close. And by then he might even have 100 meter because of how much meter he already has. So going back to neutral is a little bit messy because even though, at least in my opinion, Ram has a slight advantage against Mei in neutral, it's still going to get a little bit dicey because it's neutral, right? There's just a lot of different things that can happen when you're playing neutral, and it's a lot to think about. On the flip side, if I keep my opponent in the corner, there is way less that I need to worry about. When my opponent is in the corner, it's a lot easier for me to control what they're doing, and it actually gives me less to think about, which is really nice when you're playing in a tournament, by the way. So for me, it's a choice between going back to neutral, doing a little bit of extra damage, which is honestly, for the most part, negligible in this situation, or keeping my opponent in the corner where it is much easier for me to lock them down. And also, I can kind of force my opponent to use the resource that they have in this situation. Because Papaleo has this meter, and he's going to be put on defense with very little life left, he's kind of forced to use that meter to survive. So I end up running Oki here, I end up getting a throw. And right here, I was actually trying to bait a YRC, but I pressed my button. He like delayed the YRC, so it ended up working out. But I got him to spend the meter, right? Now in this situation, because he spent the YRC, I don't have to worry about getting hit into an RC conversion. That's just not something I have to worry about anymore, which is fantastic for the situation that I'm in. Now, I end up baiting out the 6P here and getting a JS, which is really good. And that's also because I'm limiting his options that are available, right? Because he's in the corner, I don't have to worry about spacing as much. I'm dictating the spacing that's happening here. This is just a good example of why keeping the corner in this situation is better to me than me finishing the combo and just doing a little bit of extra damage. Going back to neutral is a little dicey. There's too many things that can happen. He would have 50 meter to convert off of it. It's much easier and safer for me to just keep my opponent in the corner and try to play around that. So this next example is in the very next round, and this is another good example of why I choose not to break the wall, but kind of for a different reason this time. So we play a bit of neutral, and I kind of just work my way to putting Papaleo in the corner. And I get 6P, and now we're running corner pressure. I'm going to get a hit here in a second. Yeah, right here. From here, I could have chose to break the wall off that combo. Definitely could have done really any number of things to break the wall here if I wanted to, but I chose not to, and that's for a couple of reasons. So at this health total, when I get the hit, like I could have done a bit more damage, and I could have even broke the wall with a super, because I had 50 meter, right? But there's really no reason for me to do that. I have the life lead, my opponent has no meter, right? There's like no meter to really use defensive options right now. He tries the FD here and it doesn't really work because he has so little meter, and now he literally has 0. So my opponent has no resource to work with. I have a life lead, I have the meter lead. In this situation, there's really no reason why I would want to go back to neutral when I can just keep up the advantage and try to pressure my opponent with the meter that I do have. And I actually end up, as soon as I get 100 meter, I spend it to keep up the pressure and keep jacking up the risk gauge, because Papaleo can't FD, so he can't stop me from raising his risk gauge. And I end up getting a hit here, and I probably could have killed. I'd supered earlier than I needed to. I thought the super would just kill and I wanted to get it over with. But I could have done a longer combo and actually just won the round here. And this is just an example of like, you know, if I went back to when I got the first combo, if I had finished this combo and we went back to mid-screen, there's just a few more things that can happen in that situation that don't need to happen when I can just keep this essentially win condition going for myself. So I think it's just another good example of like a situation where wall breaking is honestly fine. I can't say it's a wrong decision, but at least for me, I think the control that I get from keeping my opponent in the corner is just more worthwhile. Alright, so those are just a couple of good in-tournament examples of some situations that you might want to consider not breaking the wall. Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of footage offhand to give other examples. There are a lot of different situations that do come up a lot that I would like to talk about. For the sake of this video, let's talk about the situation that we have in training mode, because this is one that I think does come up a lot. Right now I have about 40% HP and Kai has full HP. You've been losing the neutral the whole match, you haven't really been able to get started. You finally end up getting your hit and you're like, alright, I'm gonna spend my meter, I'm gonna try to cash out and do as much damage as I can to try to even things back up. Is this really what you want to do though? You've been losing neutral the whole match and you finally just got some meter to get something started, and you try to cash out and you don't even have a life lead after doing so, right? What if instead of doing as much damage as possible, we tried to set up as good of a situation as possible? So what if we did something like this? It's like, alright, you know what? I'm not going to cash out the damage. I just want to get a knockdown. When you're choosing to not break the wall, basically what you're saying is, I'm going to give up on some damage to set up a better situation so I can get more damage long term. If you're trying to make a comeback or something, you kind of need to try to make some riskier plays. It's a little bit greedy, but not really, especially because when you have your opponent in the corner for most characters, odds are you'll probably be able to hit them again. So right here, instead of cashing out and spending all of my meter just to do a little bit of extra damage, I'd rather keep my opponent in the corner and try to set up to do more damage over long term. That's just a common example I think that comes up a lot where people are trying to make a comeback and they end up breaking the wall and it kind of messes up their momentum, I feel. Again, especially depending on the character you're playing. If you're playing a very momentum heavy character, you might want to reconsider breaking the wall and try to go for a more long-term advantage by not breaking the wall. There's just so many factors to consider, between your HP, your burst, your attention gauge, the matchup you're playing, your own personal preference. If you're fighting a character that has a strong defensive option, if you're fighting a character like Leo or Sol, and you don't want to risk giving them the opportunity to do a reversal and get their own turn started, it might be worth it to go for the positive bonus, because I haven't really talked about the advantages for a positive bonus, but one thing it really allows you to do is sit on a lead a little bit better in some cases. Of course, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, where if you're a neutral, there's more things that you have to worry about, but if you're not feeling super confident in your offense, or you think that the opponent has strong defensive options that you'd rather just not get involved with, it might be better for you to just sit on your meter advantage and use that for your own defensive options to kind of stop your opponent's momentum if they ever get that going. Really, there's so many situations that you can consider. I don't have the answer to it. The point of this video is not really to tell you right from wrong, it's more so just to get the idea out there and get people thinking about it. Alright, I think that's it for this video. I am very curious, let me know down in the comments below what you think about this, especially depending on the character and the matchup that you're playing. If you did like this video, please consider sharing and liking the video, it really helps me out. And also consider dropping a sub to the channel, that way you know when I upload future videos. Anyways, that's going to do it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.